Good evening. Sorry I'm a couple of minutes or maybe a minute late kicking off, but anyway, we're going to talk about Subarus, or if you've been here before, you know it's the Subaru live questions and answers. You ask me the questions and I'll hopefully give you an answer. Just put a cue at the beginning of your question in the live chat, and it really helps me identify which one is a question and which one is just a comment or whatever. But normally gets quite busy, particularly towards the end. So if you've got a question, get it in early. It doesn't matter whether it's been asked before. There's millions of repeat questions. I don't expect anyone's going to go through all the live Q&A sessions to see whether someone's asked the same question that they want to ask. So if you've got a question, ask it, and you probably get an answer. So I can see we've got a few people in there already. Hi to the Academy members. Hi to the regulars. And if you're new here, great. Say hi. Say where you're from, what you're driving, because it's pretty weird to know that this is watched throughout the world. It's crazy, in fact. Oh, is the video not work? Oh, okay, it is working. Right, good. Right, superb. Where was I? Yeah, so if you don't know me, I'm Duncan. I tune Subarus for a living. Been doing that for 20 odd years here in the UK. Anything from classics to bug eyes, blob eyes, Hawkeyes, GR, GV, VA, but at the VA point, Subaru, in their infinite wisdom, decided that they were going to give up on the UK and not bring in any of the nice Marmite, admittedly, like the VB models. By Marmite, I explained that to the American market or the viewers around the world, is that you either like it or you hate it. So, there we are. Right. Okay, we've got some questions. I'm going to put my glasses on, so otherwise I'll be squinting up to the screen. So yes, we got C. Carew asking whether we could put questions there or whether it needs to go to the live chat. Yeah, but put it in the live chat. If you're watching this on replay, put your question in the comment and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. Might take a few days because it's crazy busy at the moment, but put your questions in there and I will answer them. So, right, who have we got? What have we got as a first question? Right, I will come back to that one. Alright, hi Zed, engine's finished, ready to put in the car, hopefully on Saturday morning. Right, okay, I'll cover this one because this is a nice question. Levi Johnson, best suspension for a 2002 Subaru Forester S. My suspension has been leaking and giving out. I love the Peders. I don't know whether you can get them in your part of the world, but they are a really good economy option. So they're pretty much like STI suspension from a damping point of view, a little bit firmer, but they work great in my opinion, particularly for roads that aren't like billiard tables. So they're not super smooth, as they're not here in the UK. They're awful, but yeah. Peders, I think they're great. Cordovers, you start getting into issues with top mounts rattling and the bearings not being very good quality. So yeah, PEDAs are a good option. Right. Right. Okay, so this was your question. Is it easy to rebuild a VF400 Fastline turbo? I think I've blown the seals accidentally, sealing positive crankcase pressure. Okay. Yeah, I've seen that done lots of times. People sort of just joining both headers into a catch can without realising that it needs to vent. Otherwise, it's just going to sort of force engine oil up through the drain pipe in the turbo and basically blow the seals. Yeah, if you have a word with Rob at Fastline, I'm sure he'll sort out something as far as a rebuild for you on that. I don't know what he would charge, but it might be that there is a small charge. But have a word with him and see what the costs are. He's quite a nice guy. Right, question. Best cylinder heads for an EJ257 aiming for around 500 brake horsepower. And the standard STI Hawkeye cylinder heads will do that. I know that because I did it. On mine with a MD321V, it did that, and it did 550 on E85, and it did 598 with a little tickle of nitrous as well. So the heads are good, the cams are good, the valves and the valve train's good, but if you upgrading the cams on those, then it will give more top end power. But if you're just after 500, I say just, but because it is still quite a large amount of power. If you're after that power, then the standard STI Hawkeye heads are very good, and they'll do that. Right. Hi Neil, looking forward to seeing you next week for the dyno. Did I manage to source a fuel pump? Yes, yep, no problem. I will see you, I think it's Thursday, but yeah, yep, got it, all sorted. Okay, yeah, you sent it to Rob today, 350 for a rebuild. Okay, to be honest, that's not too bad. Just wondered if it's easy doing it yourself. On a VF, I'd say no, but you know, for a TD04 or a TD05, like one of the old TD05s, the rebuild kits are freely available online for peanuts. Most of them come from China, and the quality isn't incredibly high. So easy-ish, but whether it's a good idea to do it is another matter altogether. I'd probably say send it to an expert, because they'll balance the whole rotating assembly and, you know, make sure it's spot on before it comes back to you. Oh, bought the updated Android head unit today. Good. So good with the new BTIMU. Yeah, so in case people aren't aware, Cyvex have introduced a Bluetooth integration module. I think that's what it stands for. But it will take data from the Cyvex ECU and display it or transmit it via Bluetooth to a phone or a head unit, and will display all the data out of the ECU and sort of G sensor ratings and speed, acceleration, those sort of things. Awesome piece of kit. We'll also work with OBD cars, but only sort of 2012 onwards, as far as I'm aware. I've tried it on mine, and because the Forester is always a bit of a parts bin car, it didn't work on that, particularly with the JDM side of things. But I've got to test it on some of the later cars, just to see whether it will pick up the data from that. But it should work with Syvex, Link, basically any aftermarket ECU that is transmitting CAN bus data. It's a good piece of kit, really good piece of kit, and the app itself is really good. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, it is. I think it's a good price on the rebuild. Have I ever tuned a Focus RS? No, and nor would I. There's plenty of people that will flash a map on one of those. Not me. Not interested in doing one either, unless it's got a Subaru engine in. Right. Okay, so you've got an EJ257 with version 3 STI heads, previously mapped by me on the SL, good, but now you put a link for G4X and mapped it elsewhere. With a GT37 and 1050s, but only made 380. Yeah, I think there's an issue there. That should be doing a lot more than that, a lot more. What did the mapper say the restriction was? Right, VTEC Dragon. Good evening, Duncan. Can you recommend a place to buy second-hand parts, turbos, intercoolers? eBay seems to be full of cheap knockoffs, and I wouldn't trust Facebook Marketplace ever again. Agree on the Facebook Marketplace, unless you're buying from a known person. I quite often sell things on there, so yeah, obviously you can trust me. But I tend to put them on there for a really good price, just because, you know, I'm either selling it for a friend and they want it gone quickly, or it's something that I found whilst doing my end of year clear out, which I do every year, and there'll be one of those coming up sort of in the run up to the end of the year, just going through my drawers and trying to create space for anything that Santa might bring me. To answer where to get it from, in the UK, places like Scooby Bits sell good parts. East Kent or EKS JDM sell second-hand parts. MB Developments also supplying good parts. I've never used them myself, but lots of customers have bought parts from there and have been very good. So I would go to someone that is known in the Subaru community and have a look on Facebook and ask what people think of them. You know, you'll always get a mixture of sort of responses, but you know, as long as the majority of them are saying yeah, decent, then I would go with that. Talking about EKS JDM, I'm going to have Richard from EKS JDM on this live chat in a couple of weeks, so hopefully you'll be able to join and you'll be able to ask them questions about the new setup down there. So yeah, be worth tuning in or sort of keeping an eye out for that one. Right, did your first compression test before removing the turbo to check piston rings, etc. All 4 cylinders, 150 psi. Good. Yeah, they're exactly what they should be reading. If you do the test while the engine's cold, you'll get some, you know, lower compression readings. But if they're all even at 150, then perfect. You know, the issues tend to be if you've got one that's like 100 and the other at 150, then you know that you've got an issue with one cylinder. If you got all of them even at 130, then it's just, might have a bit of wear on the pistons, or on the piston rings or the bores, but it's again not an issue, because by the time it's on boost, the rings are getting pushed out into the bores, and it's, it seals very nicely. It's just inconsistencies. It's like if you got one lower than the others, then you got a problem. Yeah, don't fill the petrol tank fully for changing the fuel pump. Ideally less than half a tank. Quarter of a tank is all I need for mapping. So anything above quarter of a tank will be fine. God, the questions are flying in. Right. Okay, let's take this one. Right, so long-term fuel trim, minus 14% lambda, 1 volt. So a wideband jumping mad between 15 and 16 and a half. Yeah, it could be a lot of things, to be honest. I'm guessing this is on a standard ECU, because of the long-term fuel trims. It could be that you've got one injector that's not quite working properly, or a loose connection, or maybe a slight misfire on that. There's a lot of things that could be happening with that. If you disconnect the O2 sensor, obviously it'll bring up the engine light. But if you disconnect that, then you'll stop the short-term fuel corrections. And if you're getting a stable reading there with the wideband, then the issue is the O2 sensor. But if it's still jumping around at that point, then look elsewhere. Could be MAV sensor, could be anything else. But data log is the easiest way to identify what's going on, rather than just going out with a checkbook and replacing every sensor, because it's very expensive to do that. Okay, so your 3071, right, leak down and compression good, maybe try another turbo, but as it isn't closed, they're called 40mm head studs. We're keeping it at that until I rebuild it properly. Okay, right, so 257 is probably a sensible level to stop at with a 257. If it's a standard 257 block, and pistons and rods. If you've got forged pistons in there, then it'll take more than that. And the closed deck plate does bugger all, in my opinion. 40mm head studs, you don't need those until you're above 650 horsepower. The 11mm head studs are absolutely perfect. I've run them at 700 with the 11mm and they're fine. Oh, yeah. Right, hi Fez. Piston to wall clearance on a forged engine. When does noise, piston slap versus performance? Are you build them with a lot more clearance for higher brake horsepower? It depends what pistons you've got in there. If you've got like the low expansion pistons, I think they're Marl pistons that are low expansion. You can go with a tighter gap on the piston to bore clearance. If you got sort of traditional forged pistons that aren't low expansion, then you'll probably want to leave bigger sort of piston to bore clearance. If I've run, I think, I built an engine about 3 o'clock in the morning before a time attack round, and that was basically whatever the pistons I had on the shelves, and the bore clearance on those was horrendous, probably 6 thou. Was noisy, was clattery. It was even clattery on boost when it was fully hot, but it still worked, still made power, still won 3-4 rounds of time attack with that engine. If it gets much more than that, then the piston skirts really start getting a hammer in, and yeah, it's just embarrassing. If it's a road engine or road car, then it's really embarrassing if it's too clattery. I'll come back to that. Okay. Right, TGV delete, but not mapped for it. Unlikely to be having that effect with the Lambda. There'll be something else going on with that. But try unplugging the O2 sensor. You'll obviously have to reset the ECU once you put it back in just to get rid of the code, but it will give you an idea as to whether that Lambda sensor's sort of messing around. Right, Village Idiots. Hello, I'm using Project Lambda. Good little project that. There's a button that says reset the ECU. Is that resetting the learning, fuel, or timing? It resets the like the fuel trim, so short-term fuel trim and long-term fuel trim. It resets the advanced multiplier back to whatever the ECU ROM is set to as a starting point, probably 8 on yours. It will also clear out sort of knock correction that are in the ECU. Right. So yeah, and it will get rid of any check engine codes as well. Right. Okay, Levi, I had my car at a local tuner and the tune is locked and he moved. I'm wondering how to fix this because my new tuner said he couldn't do anything. Ooh. Yeah, difficult one. I would have a word with your previous tuner and see whether he will send the tune to your new tuner, because it's not your fault that he's moved away. If he's moved, then he would owe a like duty of care to a degree to his customers to be able to help them out so that they can actually get their car tuned going forward. It's not fair to make you pay for a whole tune again. Not the new tuner's fault, but it's have a word with the old tuner. I'm sure he will help you out. On the Cybex output, can I output one output to power supply for 2 or more temperature sensors? I want to wire in some temperature sensor, but wondering if I can use one output to 2 input. Most temperature sensors are just a signal and a ground. But if you've got a 3-wire temperature sensor, like some of the coolant temperature sensors are 3 wires, then you can take that 5 volt from any source of 5 volt. So off the back of the ECU, off the auxiliary output on the back, or from sort of teeing into any of the 5 volt sensor wires that are already in the pins in the ECU pin out. But generally speaking, temperature sensors, ground signal, that's it. Right, where are we? Best wireless SSM OBD reader for GC8. I can only find OBD link LXMX. GCA. So I presume that's a 99 2000 with the OBD port. Yeah, I'm not sure that the OBD link would work with that. I've got one of those adapters. I haven't tried it in an older car, to be honest. I'd be guessing if an answer on that. So sorry, I don't know the answer for that. But as far as the OBD reader is concerned, or a wireless Bluetooth OBD reader, then the OBD link one is very good. Right. Hi Manuel. 93 WRX with Brembo's front and back would be a good idea to upgrade to the new age brake master cylinder. I'm not sure you need to be honest. It should work absolutely fine with the brake cylinder that's in there. I don't think there's a need to do that. Right, how are we doing time-wise? Right, okay. Is it worth upgrading the lateral links? If so, should it be polyurethane or spherical bearings? Yeah, there's spherical bearing ones. It depends what your roads and what your use of the car is, but those bearings knock out quite quickly. So if you're on rough roads or planning on taking it off road and giving it a bit of a beating, then they're probably not going to last very long. But the polyurethane ones would be a better option, I think. You know, they're stiff enough, but not too stiff. Right, how are we? Am I up to date with the questions? Oh no, there we go. Right, best oil. Yeah, I think a lot of the oil companies, you know, where you go onto a website, put in your registration number or your vehicle identification number, and it comes up with a recommendation for an oil grade. Personally, I think they're always too thin for a Subaru engine. You know, most of the time they'll come up for an Impreza STI, they'll come up with a 530 oil. I think that's too thin. Personally, I'd double both of those values. Like a 1060, I think is perfect. 65,000 miles, not high mileage. EJ20, it's quite an old design engine, so I would stick with at least a 1040, and you know, a good brand, you know, whatever that might be in your neck of the woods. Okay, EJ207 or EJ257, what's the preference for a stock block? E85, 380 to 400 wheel horsepower. It depends what you're using it for. If it's for the road, I'd go for the 257 because it's just a really nice engine to drive with on the road. But if you're using it for track use or quarter miles, then the 207 is a really good option. Will be much more reliable than a 257. You know, a W20 engine stock block is, you know, it's good for 450, 500 horsepower. So, you know, they'll do that all day long. I think, it's kind of at the crossover, that 380 to 400. I know you're talking wheel horsepower, but, you know, if that's American wheel horsepower, that's maybe 450 UK brake horsepower. I would probably steer towards the 207 on that point. Right, okay, driving mainly takes place on roads, partly on racetracks. I'd go with a polyurethane. The spherical bearings, you get an awful lot of transmission and road noise into the car, and you may or may not like it. I would personally, I'd say polyurethane is stiff enough. Okay, right, for the oil pressure and fuel pressure, I'm just going to tap into gauges. 5-volt wire back to ECU. Okay, your best bet, Ed, is to look at the pinout for the ECU that you've got in there. So the 2002 WRX pinout. And I believe it's on plug B135 pin. Yeah, pin 9 is the 5-volt out, and pin 19 is the ground. So sensor ground. Right, are the 2004 plus STI Gold Brembo brakes okay for the odd track day, or do I need to upgrade something better? Have you ever seen or fitted carbon ceramic brake pads or discs? Right, the calipers are good. I ran those on mine in the early days of Time Attack, did loads of track days. The gold with the red writing, they got really hot, so much so that the red writing turned black and the calipers themselves turned a sort of a muddy brown. They were great, absolutely fantastic with some braided lines. It helps give a nice pedal feel with some decent discs. I was running the PF discs and the PF rated pads to start with on those, and then went to the Performance Friction 01 pads. I haven't used the ceramic brake pads. They squeal an awful lot and they don't work very well from cold in my experience, but with the Performance Friction ones, they were superb. Everyone's going to have their own opinions on brake pads. What brake pads are amazing, what aren't. I'm no different to that. I just avoid EBC brake pads because they're shit. But, that's my opinion. I have tried them until I sort of put my foot on the brake pedal at the end of the straight at Snetterton and nothing happened, and then came straight in the pit and threw them away. Hi Simon, looking after my car, or your car. Blast. Is the Forester STI same running gear as the UK equivalent? Need to get new front inner CV boots. What would you recommend? Who would you recommend for parts? Give me a shout. Message me tomorrow, Simon, and I'll get a price for those bits for you. I think the inner CV boots are different on those to ones like the Hawkeye STI and what have you, but the running gear for Foresters is always different to Imprezas. It's kind of like a mixed match of bits. Don't know. Right, is it possible to experience fuel cut when the injectors are at the limits? No, generally what happens if you get, or when you get to 100% injector duty cycle, you get an extra burst of of fuel, which temporarily makes it go a little bit rich. This is because they stop opening and closing. They're just open the whole time. Fuel cut you would get if you're cornering and you've got a low level of fuel in the car. On track, I've seen that at anything less than half a tank. And, you know, if you're cornering and driving quickly with good amount of cornering G, right-hand corner, uphill maybe, then you'll get fuel cut at that point. The worrying and the more dangerous part is the bit just before that, is where, you know, it's starting to lean. You know, when it's fuel cutting, it's not detting, but when it's leaning out, it could really be detting badly. Would you recommend any cheaper suspension kits or just getting the white line anti-lift and bushing kits? White line have been doing it for a long time. They do good stuff. The anti-lift kit isn't an anti-lift kit. It's more a pro-lift kit, but the purpose of it really is to give extra caster, and it does that really well, and that's a good thing when you're cornering because you don't need so much negative camber if you're running more caster. Look it up, I'm not going to go into the differences, but it means that you've got better grip in a straight line braking and you've got more dynamic negative camber in the corner. So it's a good piece of kit. The anti-lift kit and the bushings are really good. Drop links are really good. The anti-roll bars are really good. What else do they do? The roll center adjust kit, which is superb. But yeah, they know what they're doing. I wouldn't recommend cheap. You buy cheap, you buy twice generally. Boom. Okay, no, don't look at that. You want to be looking at the Subaru pinouts. I've put them in the Discord group. Just download those. All the plugs have got different plug identifiers. So there'll be B84, B134, B135, B136, and I think B137. And they've all got the pin numbers in there. So number 1 is top right as you're looking into the ECU. So on B135, which is the plug that's got two pins and then a gap, and then the same at the bottom, 2 pins at the gap. And it'd be top left is 5-volt out. Next one down is ground. I'll come back. Is it bad to run 50 to 60% fuel injector duty cycle? Is it bad? A bit frustrating, I would say, because you've either got too big injectors or not big enough turbo. There seems to be a trend in the US where tuners or suppliers or tuning companies think that people need to have really big injectors. You know, I've seen people running 1300cc injectors on cars that are, 400 horsepower, where, 550cc injectors will get to 400 horsepower. They'll be right at the limit, but I'd rather be right at the limit rather than running 50% duty where, you've got such a big injector that you might have issues with idling or sort of low injector pulse width work, so sort of cruise and idle. Is it bad? I would just say it's kind of like a mismatch of parts. So either get a bigger turbo and turn the boost up, or put smaller injectors. ideally, I'd want to be running sort of 80 to 90% injector duty cycle, and that way you've got a good mix of having enough flow to cope with when you need it, and then a small enough injector to make idling and cruise nice. I am very good, thank you, Simon. Thank you very much. Okay, so you've installed a surge tank, so that's got rid of it. Okay, but around 6,000 RPM during acceleration, it seems like there's a fuel cut. Right, that can be a couple of different things. It could be something as simple as a crank sensor just going a bit out of whack and it's kind of losing the signal. It could be the teeth on the crank pulley have been damaged. Again, a bit of a pain in the arse to change, but it's not a big job. It could be a fuel supply issue. So, if you've got, like if the injectors or the fueling is leaning out so much that it can't supply enough fuel, your data logs might show 100% injector duty cycle, but, what is it actually doing? So if the fuel pump's getting weak, it will still be doing the injector duty cycle, but it's just not enough fuel. So that could be it. Probably that one would be the one that I would suggest. Get a wideband on it, see what it's actually doing at that point. Yeah, of course it's only going to happen when you haven't got a laptop on there yet. I had an issue with mine on track with fuel temperatures, where I was running high base pressure on the fuel pump. And because it was time set, I was trying to run a low fuel level because it's quicker, and running 2 and a bit bar of boost and four I think it was 4.5 bar of static fuel pressure on very small level of fuel in the tank, and it just superheated the fuel and made it run lean and would misfire. Fuel cooler solved the problem. Is the compression ratio on an EJ205 the same as a 207? No, as far as I'm aware, it's lower compression on the 205. How's the Blitzen doing? I've got all the suspension underbody sides parts ready to go back on the car, but it's just not having the time to get the car or drag the car into the workshop up on the ramp and actually paint the or sort of clean and paint the underside of it. Customers' cars always take priority, as well as earning money takes priority. So yeah, that will be for a quiet week. I'll bring that in and get everything up together on it and hopefully get it rolling and take it to the body shop. Yeah, ethanol needs, on E85 is about 38% extra fuel from memory on that. So yeah, I can understand if you're running E85 putting larger injectors, but I still think sort of 1,000cc injectors, you're still going to be within there. And, in the UK, 1,000cc injectors are, the ID 1050Xs are really good injectors and they're good for idling. A lot of the 1300 injectors, I guess, are Deutschwerks, and I've had issues with the data sheets or the data for latency and opening times is is a little bit variable as to whether it's accurate or not. Hi Fred, how you doing, mate? Yeah, hopefully word is getting around that people, starting to use deck cans. Probably at least half of the engine failures in the US, in my opinion, from a distance, are because they haven't been tuned, accounting for detonation. The ECU doesn't always pick it up. And it'd be a shame to lose an engine just through not bolting on a $30 piece of kit that would actually save it. You're doing really well with that, Kev, really well. I'm very, very proud of you. You've taken the bull by the horns and tuned it with the Cyvex. It's some going, getting that boost, that performance on the Cyvex, it's good. But yeah, bring it down. We'll get it on the dyno and see what's going on. Membership level, do you need to get access to Discord? Academy member. So there's the Race Dynamics supporter, which is just, hopefully you feel that you want to support. It helps pay for things like the StreamYard and lighting and for some of the silly videos that I do where I have to buy things for them. But yeah, Academy level or upwards, and you get access to the Discord group for discussions and meetups and all kinds of different things. Yeah, it's a common thing with the Blitzen, with the Dash 5s, or the Gen 3s. I'm not going to find a correct speedo. I have found one. There was a couple on eBay that seemingly were correct, but I have no need for it. I'm going to put a digital dash in mine because I'll be running a Cyvex ECU in that. So I'll be outputting the information straight from the ECU, GPS and everything to the dash. So the only issue that I foresee me having is with fuel level. So I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, but I'm sure it will be an issue. Yeah, I would look at the fuel temperature side of things. What I put in there was kind of about that big, about the size of a iPhone Plus or whatever it is, Samsung S24 Plus. So it was a really small cooler, but just had that on the return from the rails back to the tank, so that it didn't affect any of the pressure in the system, and that was enough for it to just get rid of the heat. So that was just on the top of the intercooler at the front, and solved the problem for me. What airfiles timing do you recommend if you don't have access to deck cans? I've always got access to deck cans. It doesn't take much to make them. They are really primitive, really easy, and you shouldn't be tuning a car without them. Certainly don't ever trust the AFR, the lambda sensor on the car for tuning, because it's only a narrowband. It will only read within a certain region, and it's not good enough to tune with. If you're tuning with a wideband, then I generally stick to about 11.3, 11.4 to 1. Timing is whatever the engine needs. and you will only know that by deck cans, I'm afraid. You could look at whether there's any feedback knock. Doesn't always work. Sometimes it will pick up ghost det, but sometimes it just ignores that altogether. So your engine could be quite merrily destroying itself, and you wouldn't know a thing about it. Yeah, they are really easy to make. I've been tuning Subaru engines for 20 years. The amount of times that I hear det and the ECU doesn't, it's probably 50% of the time the ECU doesn't hear it. So if you're tuning it without det cans, there's a 50% chance that the engine's going to kill itself just because you can't put a $30 piece of kit on there and maybe look a little bit silly driving down the road. But I'd rather look silly driving down the road with those just while you're tuning it than looking even sillier by the side of the road waiting for a recovery truck. I can't stress how important they are when you're mapping. I know tuners over there, they're relying on the ECU. I think they're foolish, and I'd quite happily have that argument with every single one of them. But you can hear it. I've shown in the videos, that kills Subaru engines. Right, how are we doing for time? Right, okay, 8 minutes left. Right. Ooh, okay. Right. 2004 Forester XT, not allowing flash tune, no fin read. Now the keyless entry doesn't work. No, I've not seen that. Were you, give me a bit of background on it. Were you trying to flash a different file onto there, or a modified version of the file that you downloaded from it? Because generally with those sort of issues, it's because you've tried to put a different kind of file in there. Particularly with 2004 XT, is probably going to be half CAN bus, so you might get issues if you're trying to put a different type of ROM ID in there, because there'll just be different elements in the ROM file that wouldn't quite be controlling the right bits of the ECU or of the car, and it might get confused. And I think that's possibly what's happened here. If you can, you might be able to go in and force a tune in there with something like ECU flash probably won't let you do it. Something like fast ECU might let you force a file in there, but you want to know that the file that you're putting in there, unless it's the original one that you've downloaded, that's probably what I'd recommend you do. Try and put the original file back on there. How often would you get the car on a dyno for a checkup? Annual service? No. As nice as it would be to see every one of my customers every year. I have people turning up and it's like, I mapped the car 10 years ago and they just wanted to check that it was fine. It is. Maybe in some cases it's gone up a couple of horsepower. But not every year. Unless you're changing bits. If you're bolting anything on that you think is going to change or improve the performance, then at that point it needs a checkup. unless you just want to come in for a chat and what have you. Yeah. Vehicle runs, keys can't learn, can't pull the tune off it, can't read. Yeah, what file was put on there? Was it from your car? Were the checksums right? Was it the right ROM ID that you try to force in there? To me, it sounds like the wrong file has gone in there, and he's forgotten what it is. Right, okay. I'm not going to answer that because Mel knows the answer to that. Yeah, not possible. Mel knows. Right, 99 Legacy B4 I bought in Japan, imported to Spain, can't register it as they won't even test it because it doesn't have a certificate of compliance. Maybe email Subaru UK, or I'm not sure whether Subaru Spain still exists, but they might be able to sort something out. I know when I've needed CFCs for cars, then the Subaru UK are superb at actually getting those. They might do that, or the importer might have something, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'd need to look up on the Spanish rules for registering it. You could always register it in the UK, and then sort of temporarily import it to Spain, and then do the, is it 1 year before it has to be registered over there? I'm not sure now. 99 twin turbo, yes. I'm not running mine as a twin turbo. Do you know what other model parts are interchangeable? Or it depends what bits you're trying to interchange, really. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that carried on from that, and is certainly very similar, but there's an awful lot of stuff that finished at the end of the end of the Gen 3s, or the Gen 4s rather. It depends. Email me. I may, what depends on what you're after. Right, we are pretty much at the end. Alright, spark plugs. Plugs, PFR6Bs, injectors. They are side feeds. I believe they're yellows from memory. So they'll be the same as a 99 2000 Impreza. A lot of the bits will they tested a lot of things on the Legacy, and if they worked, they made it onto the Imprezas, and if there were bits left over, they went onto the Foresters. So if you can't find the exact bit that you want on your Legacy, then there's a good chance that a similar age or a slightly newer age Impreza has got the right part. Right, I am at the end of the session. Thank you very much. If you've got any other questions, then put it in the comments and I'll get back and reply. Thank you very much. And see you next week.